Book 3. Of Words. Chapter 3. Of General Terms. 1. The greatest part of words general. All things that exist being particulars, it may perhaps be thought reasonable that words, which ought to be conformed to things, should be so too in their signification, but yet we find the quite contrary. The far greatest part of words that make all languages are general terms, which has not been the effect of neglect or chance, but of reason and necessity. 2. For every particular thing to have a name is impossible. First, it is impossible that every particular thing should have a distinct peculiar name. For the signification and use of words depending on that connection which the mind makes between its ideas and the sounds it uses as signs of them, it is necessary, in the application of names to things, that the mind should have distinct ideas of the things, and retain also the particular name that belongs to every one, with its peculiar appropriation to that idea. But it is beyond the power of human capacity to frame and retain distinct ideas of all the particular things we meet with, Eve one white bird and beast men saw, every tree and plant that affected the senses, could not find a place in the most capacious understanding. If it is looked on as an instance of a prodigious memory that some generals have been able to call every soldier in their army by his proper name, we may easily find a reason why men have never attempted to give names to each sheep in their flock, or crow that flies over their heads, much less to call every leaf of plants or grain of sand that came in their way by a peculiar name. 3. And useless. Secondly, if it were possible, it would yet be useless, because it would not serve to the chief end of language. Men would in vain heap up names of particular things that would not serve them to communicate their thoughts. Men learn names, and use them in talk with others, only that they may be understood. This is then only done when, by use or consent, the sound I make by the organs of speech excites in another man's mind who hears it the idea I apply it to in mine when I speak it. This cannot be done by names applied to particular things, of which I alone having the ideas in my mind, the names of them could not be significant or intelligible to another, who was not acquainted with all those very particular things which had fallen under my notice. For the thirdly, but yet, granting this also feasible, which I think is not, yet a distinct name for every particular thing would not be of any great use for the improvement of knowledge, which, though founded in particular things, enlarges itself by general views, to which things reduced into sorts, under general names, are properly subservient. 6. How general words are made. The next thing to be considered is how general words come to be made. For, since all things that exist are only particulars, how do we come by general terms, or where do we find those general natures they are supposed to stand for? Words become general by being made the signs of general ideas, and ideas become general by separating from them the circumstances of time and place, and any other ideas that may determine them to this or that particular existence. By this way of abstraction they are made capable of representing more individuals than one. Each of these, having in it a conformity to that abstract idea, is, as we call it, of that sort. 7. But to deduce this a little more distinctly, it will not perhaps be amiss to trace our notions and names from their beginning, and observe by what degrees we proceed, and by what steps we enlarge our ideas from our first infancy. There is nothing more evident than that the ideas of the persons children converse with, to instance in them alone, are like the persons themselves, only particular. The ideas of the nurse and the mother are well framed in their minds, and, like pictures of them there, represent only those individuals. The names they first gave to them are confined to these individuals, and the names of nurse and mamma the child uses determine themselves to those persons. Afterwards, when time and a larger acquaintance have made them observe that there are a great many other things in the world that in some common agreements of shape, and several other qualities, resemble their father and mother and those persons they have been used to, they frame an idea, which they find those many particulars do partake in, and to that they give, with others, the name man for example. And thus they come to have a general name and a general idea. They make nothing new in this, but only leave out of the complex idea they had of Peter and James, Mary and Jane, that which is peculiar to each, and retain only what is common to them all. 8. By the same way that they come by the general name and idea of man, they easily advance to more general names and notions. For, observing that several things that differ from their idea of man, and cannot therefore be comprehended under that name, have yet certain qualities in which they agree with man, by retaining only those qualities, and uniting them into one idea, they have again another and more general idea, to which having given a name they make a term of a more comprehensive extension. This new idea is made, not by any new addition, but only as before, by leaving out the shape, and some other properties, signified by the name man, and retaining only a body, with life, sense, and spontaneous motion, comprehended under the name animal. 9. General natures are nothing but abstract ideas. That this is the way by which men first form general ideas, and general names to them, I think, is so evident that there needs no other proof of it, but the considering of a man's self, or others, and the ordinary proceedings of their minds in knowledge. And he who thinks general natures or notions are anything else but such abstract and partial ideas of more complex ones, taken at first from particular existences, will, I fear, be at a loss where to find them. For let any one reflect, and then tell me in what does his idea of man differ from that of Peter and Paul, or his idea of horse from that of Bucephalus, but in the leaving out something that is peculiar to each individual, and retaining so much of those particular complex ideas of several particular existences as they are found to agree in. Of the complex ideas signified by the names man and horse, leaving out but those particulars in which they differ, and retaining only those in which they agree, and of those making a new distinct complex idea, and giving the name animal to it, one has a more general term that comprehends with man several other creatures. Leave out of the idea of animal sense, and spontaneous motion, and a remaining complex idea, made up of the remaining simple ones of body, life, and nourishment, becomes a more general one, under the more comprehensive term vivens. And not to dwell longer upon this particular, so evident in itself, by the same way the mind proceeds to body, substance, and at last to being, thing, and such universal terms which stand for any of our ideas whatsoever. To conclude, this whole mystery of genera and species, which make such a noise in the schools and are with justice so little regarded out of them, is nothing else but abstract ideas, more or less comprehensive, with names annexed to them. In all this, it is constant and invariable that every more general term stands for such an idea, and is but a part of any of those contained under it. 10. Why the genus is ordinarily of use in definitions. This may show us the reason why, in the defining of words, which is nothing but declaring their significations, we make use of the genus, or next general word that comprehends it. This is not out of necessity, but only to save the labor of enumerating the several simple ideas which the next general word or genus stands for, or, perhaps, sometimes the shame of not being able to do it. But though defining by genus and differentia, I beg permission to use these terms of art, though originally Latin, since they most properly suit those notions they are applied to. I say, though defining by the genus is the shortest way, yet I think it may be doubted whether it is the best. This I am sure, it is not the only, and so not absolutely necessary. For, definition being nothing but making another understand by words what idea the term defined stands for, a definition is best made by enumerating those simple ideas that are combined in the signification of the term defined, and if, instead of such an enumeration, men have accustomed themselves to use the next general term, it has not been out of necessity, or for greater clearness, but for quickness and dispatch sake. For I think that, to one who desired to know what idea the word man stood for, if it should be said that man was a solid extended substance, having life, sense, spontaneous motion, and the faculty of reasoning, I do not doubt but the meaning of the term man would be as well understood, and the idea it stands for be at least as clearly made known, as when it is defined to be a rational animal, which by the several definitions of animal, vivens, and corpus, resolves itself into those enumerated ideas. I have, in explaining the term man, followed here the ordinary definition of the schools, which, though perhaps not the most exact, yet serves well enough to my present purpose. And one may, in this instance, see what gave occasion to the rule that a definition must consist of genus and differentia, and it suffices to show us the little necessity there is of such a rule, or advantage in the strict observing of it. For definitions, as has been said, being only the explaining of one word by several others, so that the meaning or idea it stands for may be certainly known, languages are not always so made according to the rules of logic that every term can have its signification exactly and clearly expressed by two others. Experience sufficiently satisfies us to the contrary, or else those who have made this rule have clone ill, that they have given us so few definitions conformable to it. But of definitions more in the next chapter. 11. General and universal are creatures of the understanding. To return to general words, it is plain, by what has been said, that general and universal do not belong to the real existence of things, but are the inventions and creatures of the understanding, made by it for its own use, and concern only signs, whether words or ideas. Words are general, as has been said, when used for signs of general ideas, and so are applicable indifferently to many particular things, and ideas are general when they are set up as the representatives of many particular things. But universality does not belong to things themselves, which are all of them particular in their existence, even those words and ideas which in their signification are general. When therefore we quit particulars, the generals that rest are only creatures of our own making, their general nature being nothing but the capacity they are put into by the understanding of signifying or representing many particulars. For the signification they have is nothing but a relation that, by the mind of man, is added to them. 12. Abstract ideas are the essences of the genera and species. The next thing, therefore, to be considered is, what kind of signification it is that general words have. For as it is evident that they do not signify barely one particular thing, for then they would not be general terms but proper names, so on the other side it is as evident they do not signify a plurality, for man and men would then signify the same, and the distinction of numbers, as the grammarians call them, would be superfluous and useless. That then which general words signify is a sort of things, and each of them does that by being a sign of an abstract idea in the mind, to which idea, as things existing, are found to agree, so they come to be ranked under that name, or, which is all one, be of that sort. In this way it is evident that the essences of the sorts, or, if the Latin word pleases better, species of things, are nothing else but these abstract ideas. For the having the essence of any species being that which makes anything to be of that species, and the conformity to the idea to which the name is annexed being that which gives a right to that name, the having the essence, and the having that conformity, must necessarily be the same thing, since to be of any species and to have a right to the name of that species is all one. As, for example, to be a man, or of the species man, and to have right to the name man, is the same thing. Again, to be a man, or of the species man, and have the essence of a man, is the same thing. Now, since nothing can be a man, or have a right to the name man, but what has a conformity to the abstract idea of the name man stands for, nor anything be a man, or have a right to the species man, but what has the essence of that species, it follows that the abstract idea for which the name stands, and the essence of the species, is one and the same. From this it is easy to observe that the essences of the sorts of things, and consequently the sorting of things, is the workmanship of the understanding that abstracts and makes those general ideas. 13. They are the workmanship of the understanding, but have their foundation in the similitude of things. I would not here be thought to forget, much less to deny, that nature in the production of things makes several of them alike. There is nothing more obvious, especially in the races of animals, and all things propagated by seed. But yet I think we may say the sorting of them under names is the workmanship of the understanding, taking occasion from the similitude it observes among them to make abstract general ideas, and set them up in the mind, with names annexed to them as patterns or forms, for in that sense the word form has a very proper signification, to which, as particular things existing are found to agree, so they come to be of that species, have that denomination, or are put into that class. For when we say, this is a man, that a horse, this justice, that cruelty, this a watch, that a jack, what else do we but rank things under different specific names, as agreeing to those abstract ideas, of which we have made those names the signs? And what are the essences of those species set out and marked by names, but those abstract ideas in the mind, which are, as it were, the bonds between particular things that exist and the names they are to be ranked under? And when general names have any connection with particular beings, these abstract ideas are the medium that unites them, so that the essences of species, as distinguished and denominated by us, neither are nor can be anything but these precise abstract ideas we have in our minds. And therefore the supposed real essences of substances, if different from our abstract ideas, cannot be the essences of the species we rank things into. For two species may be one, as rationally as two different essences be the essence of one species, and I demand what are the alterations which may or may not be made in a horse or lead, without making either of them to be of another species. In determining the species of things by our abstract ideas, this is easy to resolve, but if anyone will regulate himself here by supposed real essences, he will, I suppose, be at a loss, and he will never be able to know when anything precisely ceases to be of the species of a horse or lead. 15. Real and nominal essence. But since the essences of things are thought by some, and not without reason, to be wholly unknown, it may not be amiss to consider the several significations of the word essence. First, essence may be taken for the very being of anything, by which it is what it is. And thus the real internal, but generally, in substances, unknown constitution of things on which their discoverable qualities depend, may be called their essence. This is the proper original signification of the word, as is evident from the formation of it, essentia, in its primary notation, signifying properly being. And in this sense it is still used, when we speak of the essence of particular things, without giving them any name. Secondly, the learning disputes of the schools having been much busied about genus and species, the word essence has almost lost its primary signification, and instead of the real constitution of things, has been almost wholly applied to the artificial constitution of genus and species. It is true there is ordinarily supposed a real constitution of the sorts of things, and it is past doubt there must be some real constitution on which any collection of simple ideas coexisting must depend. But it being evident that things are ranked under names into sorts or species only as they agree to certain abstract ideas to which we have annexed those names, the essence of each genus, or sort, comes to be nothing but that abstract idea which the general, or sortal, if I may have leave so to call it from sort, as I do general from genus, name stands for. And this we shall find to be that which the word essence imports in its most familiar use. These two sorts of essences, I suppose, may not unfitly be termed, the one the real, the other nominal essence. 16. Constant connection between the name and nominal essence. Between the nominal essence and the name there is so near a connection that the name of any sort of things cannot be attributed to any particular being but what has this essence, by which it answers that abstract idea of which that name is the sign. 17. Supposition that species are distinguished by their real essence is useless. Concerning the real essences of corporeal substances, to mention these only, there are, if I am not mistaken, two opinions. The one is of those who, using the word essence for they know not what, suppose a certain number of those essences, according to which all natural things are made, and in which they do exactly every one of them partake, and so become of this or that species. The other and more rational opinion is of those who look on all natural things to have a real, but unknown constitution of their insensible parts, from which flow those sensible qualities which serve us to distinguish them one from another, according as we have occasion to rank them into sorts under common denominations. The former of these opinions, which supposes these essences as a certain number of forms or molds, in which all natural things that exist are cast, and do equally partake, has, I imagine, very much perplexed the knowledge of natural things. The frequent productions of monsters, in all the species of animals, and of changelings, and other strange issues of human birth, carry with them difficulties, not possible to consist with this hypothesis, since it is as impossible that two things partaking exactly of the same real essence should have different properties, as that two figures partaking of the same real essence of a circle should have different properties. But were there no other reason against it, yet the supposition of essences that cannot be known, and the making of them nevertheless to be that which distinguishes the species of things, is so wholly useless and unserviceable to any part of our knowledge, that alone were sufficient to make us lay it by, and content ourselves with such essences of the sorts or species of things as come within the reach of our knowledge. When seriously considered, this will be found, as I have said, to be nothing else but those abstract complex ideas to which we have annexed distinct general names. 18. Real and nominal essence the same in simple ideas and modes, different in substances. Essences being thus distinguished into nominal and real, we may further observe that, in the species of simple ideas and modes, they are always the same, but in substances always quite different. Thus a figure including a space between three lines is the real as well as nominal essence of a triangle, it being not only the abstract idea to which the general name is annexed, but the very essentia or being of the thing itself, that foundation from which all its properties flow, and to which they are all inseparably annexed. But it is far otherwise concerning that parcel of matter which makes the ring on my finger, in which these two essences are apparently different. For it is the real constitution of its insensible parts, on which depend all those properties of color, weight, fusibility, fixedness, etc., which are to be found in it, which constitution we know not, and so having no particular idea of, have no name that is the sign of it. But yet it is its color, weight, fusibility, fixedness, etc., which makes it to be gold, or gives it a right to that name, which is therefore its nominal essence. Since nothing can be called gold but what has a conformity of qualities to that abstract complex idea to which that name is annexed. But this distinction of essences belonging particularly to substances, we shall, when we come to consider their names, have an occasion to treat of more fully. Chapter 6. Of the names of substances. 1. The common names of substances stand for sorts. The common names of substances, as well as other general terms, stand for sorts, which is nothing else but the being made signs of such complex ideas, in which several particular substances do or might agree, by virtue of which they are capable of being comprehended in one common conception, and signified by one name. I say do or might agree, for though there is but one sun existing in the world, yet the idea of it being abstracted so that more substances, if there were several, might each agree in it, it is as much a sort as if there were as many suns as there are stars. They do not lack their reasons who think there are, and that each fixed star would answer the idea the name sun stands for, to one who is placed in a due distance which, by the way, may show us how much the sorts or, if you please, genera and species of things, for those Latin terms signify to me no more than the English word sort, depend on such collections of ideas as men have made, and not on the real nature of things, since it is not impossible but that, in propriety of speech, that might be a sun to one which is a star to another. 2. The essence of each sort is the abstract idea. The measure and boundary of each sort, or species, by which it is constituted that particular sort, and distinguished from others, are what we call its essence, which is nothing but that abstract idea to which the name is annexed, so that everything contained in that idea is essential to that sort. This, though it is all the essence of natural substances that we know, or by which we distinguish them into sorts, yet I call it by a peculiar name, the nominal essence, to distinguish it from the real constitution of substances, upon which depends this nominal essence and all the properties of that sort. This therefore, as has been said, may be called the real essence, e.g., the nominal essence of gold is that complex idea the word gold stands for let it be, for instance, a body yellow, of a certain weight, malleable, fusible, and fixed. But the real essence is the constitution of the insensible parts of that body, on which those qualities and all the other properties of gold depend. How far these two are different, though they are both called essence, is obvious at first sight to discover. 3. The nominal and real essence different. For, though perhaps voluntary motion, with sense and reason, joined to a body of a certain shape, is the complex idea to which I, and others, annex the name man, and so is the nominal essence of the species so called, yet nobody will say that complex idea is the real essence and source of all those operations which are to be found in any individual of that sort. The foundation of all those qualities which are the ingredients of our complex idea is something quite different, and had we such a knowledge of that constitution of man, from which his faculties of moving, sensation, and reasoning, and other powers how, and on which his so regular shape depends, as it is possible angels have, and it is certain his Maker has, we should have a quite other idea of his essence than what now is contained in our definition of that species, be it what it will, and our idea of any individual man would be as far different from what it is now, as is his who knows all the springs and wheels and other contrivances within of the famous clock at Strasbourg, from that which a gazing countryman has for it, who barely sees the motion of the hand, and hears the clock strike, and observes only some of the outward appearances. 4. Nothing essential to individuals. That essence, in the ordinary use of the word, relates to sorts, and that it is considered in particular beings no further than as they are ranked into sorts appears from hence, that, take but away the abstract ideas by which we sort individuals, and rank them under common mains, and then the thought of anything essential to any of them instantly vanishes. We have no notion of the one without the other, which plainly shows their relation. It is necessary for me to be as I am. God and nature has made me so, but there is nothing I have that is essential to me. An accident or disease may very much alter my color or shape, a fever or a fall may take away my reason or memory, or both, and an apoplexy leave neither sense nor understanding, no, nor life. Other creatures of my shape may be made with more and better, or fewer and worse faculties than I have, and others may have reason and sense in a shape and body very different from mine. None of these are essential to the one or the other, or to any individual whatever, until the mind refers it to some sort or species of things, and then presently, according to the abstract idea of that sort, something is found essential. Let any one examine his own thoughts, and he will find that as soon as he supposes or speaks of essential, the consideration of some species, or the complex idea, signified by some general name, comes into his mind, and it is in reference to that this or that quality is said to be essential. So that if it is asked whether it is essential to me or any other particular corporeal being to have reason, I say no, no more than it is essential to this white thing I write on to have words in it. But if that particular being is to be counted of the sort man, and to have the name man given it, then reason is essential to it, supposing reason to be a part of the complex idea the name man stands for, as it is essential to this thing I write on to contain words, if I will give it the name treatise, and rank it under that species. So that essential and not essential relate only to our abstract ideas, and the names annexed to them, which amounts to no more than this, that whatever particular thing does not have in it those qualities which are contained in the abstract idea which any general term stands for, cannot be ranked under that species, nor be called by that name, since that abstract idea is the very essence of that species. 5. Thus, if the idea of body with some people is bare extension or space, then solidity is not essential to body. If others make the idea to which they give the name body to be solidity and extension, then solidity is essential to body. That, therefore, and that alone is considered as essential, which makes a part of the complex idea of the name of a sort stands for, without which no particular thing can be reckoned of that sort, nor be entitled to that name. Should there be found a parcel of matter that had all the other qualities that are in iron, but lacked obedience to the lodestone, and would neither be drawn by it nor receive direction from it, would any one question whether it wanted anything essential? It would be absurd to ask whether a thing really existing wanted anything essential to it. Or could it be demanded whether this made an essential or specific difference or not, since we have no other measure of essential or specific but our abstract ideas? And to talk of specific differences in nature, without reference to general ideas and names, is to talk unintelligibly. For I would ask anyone what is sufficient to make an essential difference in nature between any two particular beings, without any regard had to some abstract idea, which is looked upon as the essence and standard of a species. All such patterns and standards being quite laid aside, particular beings, considered barely in themselves, will be found to have all their qualities equally essential, and everything, in each individual, will be essential to it, or, which is more, nothing at all. For though it may be reasonable to ask whether obeying the magnet is essential to iron, yet, I think, it is very improper and insignificant to ask whether it is essential to the particular parcel of matter I cut my pen with, without considering it under the name iron, or as being of a certain species. And if, as has been said, our abstract ideas, which have names annexed to them, are the boundaries of species, nothing can be essential but what is contained in those ideas. 6. It is true, I have often mentioned a real essence, distinct in substances from those abstract ideas of them which I call their nominal essence. By this real essence I mean the real constitution of anything, which is the foundation of all those properties that are combined in, and are constantly found to coexist with, the nominal essence, that particular constitution which everything has within itself, without any relation to anything without it. But essence, even in this sense, relates to a sort, and supposes a species, for being that real constitution on which the properties depend, it necessarily supposes a sort of things, properties belonging only to species, and not to individuals, e.g., supposing the nominal essence of gold to be a body of such a peculiar color and weight, with malleability and fusibility. The real essence is that constitution of the parts of matter on which these qualities and their union depend, and is also the foundation of its solubility in aqua regia and other properties accompanying that complex idea. Here are essences and properties, but all upon supposition of a sort, or general abstract idea, which is considered as immutable, but there is no individual parcel of matter to which any of these qualities are so annexed as to be essential to it, or inseparable from it. That which is essential belongs to it as a condition, by which it is of this or that sort, but take away the consideration of its being ranked under the name of some abstract idea, and then there is nothing necessary to it, nothing inseparable from it. Indeed, as to the real essences of substances, we only suppose their being, without precisely knowing what they are, but that which annexes them still to the species is the nominal essence, of which they are the supposed foundation and cause. 7. The nominal essence bounds the species. The next thing to be considered is, by which of those essences it is that substances are determined into sorts, or species, and that, it is evident, is by the nominal essence. For it is that alone that the name, which is the mark of the sort, signifies. It is impossible, therefore, that anything should determine the sorts of things, which we rank under general names, but that idea which that name is designed as a mark for, which is that, as has been shown, which we call nominal essence. Why do we say, this is a horse, that a mule, this is an animal, that an herb? How does any particular thing come to be of this or that sort, but because it has that nominal essence or, which is all one, agrees to that abstract idea that name is annexed to? And I desire any one but to reflect on his own thoughts, when he hears or speaks any of those, or other names of substances, to know what sort of essences they stand for. 8. And that the species of things to us are nothing but the rating them under distinct names, according to the complex ideas in us, and not according to precise, distinct, real essences in them, is plain from this, that we find many of the individuals that are ranked into one sort, called by one common name, and so received as being of one species, have yet qualities depending on their real constitutions, as far different one from another as from others, from which they are accounted to differ. Specifically, 9. Not the real essence, which we do not know. Nor indeed can we rank and sort things, and consequently, which is the enkel of sorting, denominate them by their real essences, because we do not know them. Our faculties carry us no further towards the knowledge and distinction of substances than a collection of those sensible ideas which we observe in them, which, however made with the greatest diligence and exactness we are capable of, yet is more remote from the true internal constitution from which those qualities flow than, as I said, a countryman's idea is from the inward contrivance of that famous clock at Strasbourg, of which he only sees the outward figure and motions. There is not so contemptible a plant or animal that does not confound the most enlarged understanding. Though the familiar use of things about us take off our wonder, yet it does not cure our ignorance. When we come to examine the stones we tread on, or the iron we daily handle, we presently find we do not know their make, and can give no reason of the different qualities we find in them. It is evident the internal constitution, on which their properties depend, is unknown to us. For to go no further than the grossest and most obvious we can imagine among them, what is that texture of parts, that real essence, that makes lead and antimony fusible, wood and stones not? What makes lead and iron malleable, antimony and stones not? And yet how infinitely these come short of the fine contrivances and inconceivable real essences of plants or animals, everyone knows. The workmanship of the all-wise and powerful Goel, in the great fabric of the universe, and every part of it, further exceeds the capacity and comprehension of the most inquisitive and intelligent man than the best contrivance of the most ingenious man does the conceptions of the most ignorant of rational creatures. Therefore, we in vain pretend to range things into sorts and dispose them into certain classes, under names, by their real essences, that are so far from our discovery or comprehension. 12. There are probably numberless species of spirits. It is not impossible to conceive, nor repugnant to reason, that there may be many species of spirits, as much separated and diversified one from another by distinct properties of which we have no ideas, as the species of sensible things are distinguished one from another by qualities which we know and observe in them. That there should be more species of intelligent creatures above us than there are of sensible and material below us is probable to me from this, that in all the visible corporeal world we see no chasms or gaps. All quite down from us the descent is by easy steps, and a continued series of things, that in each removed differ very little one from the other. There are fishes that have wings and are not strangers to the airy region, and there are some birds that are inhabitants of the water whose blood is cold as fishes, and their flesh so like in taste that the scrupulous are allowed them on fish days. There are animals so near of kin both to birds and beasts that they are in the middle between both. Amphibious animals link the terrestrial and aquatic together, seals live at land and sea, and porpoises have the warm blood and entrails of a hog, not to mention what is confidently reported of mermaids or seamen. There are some brutes that seem to have as much knowledge and reason as some that are called man, and the animal and vegetable kingdoms are so nearly joined that, if you will take the lowest of one and the highest of the other, there will scarcely be perceived any great difference between them, and so on, until we come to the lowest and the most inorganic parts of matter. We shall find everywhere that the several species are linked together, and differ but in almost insensible degrees. 14. Difficulties against a certain number of real essences. To distinguish substantial beings into species, according to the usual supposition that there are certain precise essences or forms of things, by which all the individuals existing are by nature distinguished into species, these things are necessary. 15. First, to be assured that nature, in the production of things, always designs them to partake of certain regulated established essences, which are to be the models of all things to be produced. This, in that crude sense it is usually proposed, would need some better explication before it can fully be assented to. 16. Secondly, it would be necessary to know whether nature always attains the essence it designs in the production of things. The irregular and monstrous births, that in various sorts of animals have been observed, will always give us reason to doubt of one or both of these. 17. Thirdly, it ought to be determined whether those we call monsters are really a distinct species, according to the scholastic notion of the word species, since it is certain that everything that exists has its particular constitution. And yet we find that some of these monstrous productions have few or none of those qualities which are supposed to result from and accompany the essence of that species from which they derive their origins, and to which, by their descent, they seem to belong. 18. Fourthly, the real essences of those things which we distinguish into species, and as so distinguished we name, ought to be known, i.e., we ought to have ideas of them. But since we are ignorant in these 4 points, the supposed real essences of things do not stand us instead for the distinguishing substances into species. 19. Are nominal essences of substances, not perfect collections of properties. Fifthly, the only imaginable help in this case would be that, having framed perfect complex ideas of the properties of things flowing from their different real essences, we should distinguish them into species by them. But neither can this be done, for, being ignorant of the real essence itself, it is impossible to know all those properties that flow from it and are so annexed to it that, any one of them being away, we may certainly conclude that that essence is not there, and so the thing is not of that species. 26. Therefore very various and uncertain. Since then it is evident that we sort and name substances by their nominal and not by their real essences, the next thing to be considered is how, and by whom, these essences come to be made. As to the latter, it is evident they are made by the mind, and not by nature, for were they nature's workmanship, they could not be so various and different in several men as experience tells us they are. For if we will examine it, we shall not find the nominal essence of any one species of substances in all men the same, no, not of that which of all others we are the most intimately acquainted with. 28. But not so arbitrary as mixed modes. But though these nominal essences of substances are made by the mind, they are not yet made so arbitrarily as those of mixed modes. To the making of any nominal essence, it is necessary, first, that the ideas of which it consists have such a union as to make but one idea, however compounded. Secondly, that the particular idea so united be exactly the same, neither more nor less. For if two abstract complex ideas differ either in number or sorts of their component parts, they make two different, and not one and the same essence. In the first of these, the mind, in making its complex ideas of substances, only follows nature, and puts none together which are not supposed to have a union in nature. Nobody joins the voice of a sheep with the shape of a horse, nor the color of lead with the weight and fixedness of gold, to be the complex ideas of any real substances, unless he has a mind to fill his head with chimeras and his discourse with unintelligible words. Men, observing certain qualities always joined and existing together, copied nature in this, and of ideas so united made their complex ones of substances. For though men may make what complex ideas they please, and give what names to them they will, yet if they will be understood when they speak of things really existing, they must in some degree conform their ideas to the things they would speak of, or else men's language will be like that of Babel, and every man's words, being intelligible only to himself, would no longer serve to conversation and the ordinary affairs of life, if the ideas they stand for are not some way answering the common appearances and agreement of substances as they really exist. 29. Though very imperfect. Secondly, though the mind of man, in making its complex ideas of substances, never puts any together that do not really or are not supposed to coexist, and so it truly borrows that union from nature, yet the number it combines depends upon the various care, industry, or fancy of him that makes it. Men generally content themselves with some few sensible obvious qualities, and often, if not always, leave out others as material and as firmly united as those that they take. 32. The more general our ideas are, the more incomplete and partial they are. If the number of simple ideas that make the nominal essence of the lowest species, or first sorting, of individuals depends on the mind of man variously collecting them, it is much more evident that they do so in the more comprehensive classes, which, by the masters of logic, are called genera. These are complex ideas designedly imperfect, and it is visible at first sight that several of those qualities that are to be found in the things themselves are purposely left out of generical ideas. For, as the mind, to make general ideas comprehending several particulars, leaves out those of time and place, and such other that make them incommunicable to more than one individual, so to make other yet more general ideas, that may comprehend different sorts, it leaves out those qualities that distinguish them, and puts into its new collection only such ideas as are common to several sorts. 36. Though nature makes the similitude. This then, in short, is the case. Nature makes many particular things which do agree one with another in many sensible qualities, and probably too in their internal frame and constitution. But it is not this real essence that distinguishes them into species. It is men who, taking occasion from the qualities they find united in them, and in which they observe often several individuals to agree, range them into sorts, in order to their naming, for the convenience of comprehensive signs, under. These individuals, according to their conformity to this or that abstract idea, come to be ranked as under ensigns, so that this is of the blue, that the red regiment, this is a man, that a drill, and in this, I think, consists the whole business of genus and species.